in the West Bank, which was completed after the Second Intifada, and the siege of the Gaza Strip. Palestinians were sort of disappeared from Israeli society. And I think there was an article last month that showed only 40% of Jewish Israelis have even met a Palestinian, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, when I hang out in Tel Aviv and I go to some bohemian bar and I feel like I'm in London or Brooklyn, I really get the sense that people who are sitting around me have more of a connection to Kathmandu than they do to Ramallah, which is 20 kilometers away. I mean, they're talking about their vacations in Guatemala and Cuba, but there's no sense that Palestine exists. That was the goal of the separation wall and the siege of the Gaza Strip. And along with that was a change in the Israeli education system. With unilateral separation came a recognition that there would never be a solution or a normalization of Israel's role in the Middle East. So it's settler colonialism forever. Young people have to be more aggressively indoctrinated to be good soldiers. And the militarization of the education system increased enormously over those years, and that's an issue. That's why I really tried to explore that issue in the book. The people who grew up under separation, under that education system, those are the soldiers who went into Khuzah. Those are the soldiers who went into Shuja'iyah. Those are the commanders, like Ofer Winter. And they're also under the sway of rising religious nationalism, which is sort of consistent with increasing religious radicalization throughout the Middle East. So I don't really have any hope for changing the minds of Jewish Israelis. Israel needs to be forced to end its project of settler colonialism and apartheid. And it's just a question of what kind of force will be used. Look at the fact that 95% of Jewish Israelis supported the war throughout the war. Only 3%, the margin of error, opposed it, and 45% declared that Israel didn't use enough force. I don't like the whole rhetoric of like they're victims too, but these are people who've been indoctrinated their whole lives. Their attitudes have been cultivated in the most militarized society in the world. They embody a certain kind of syndrome that you only see in anachronistic societies. And so forcing Israel to end its system of apartheid, I think, will relieve them of the obligation to dominate other people and allow them to normalize. The issue of Palestinian statehood is ridiculous to me at this point. There will not be Palestinian sovereignty in any normal sense as long as Israel remains a Jewish state. And if Israel does not remain a Jewish state, there are a lot of different options. It could be like Algeria. Everyone will leave. I would prefer a situation more like South Africa. And that would necessarily nullify the idea of an exclusively Palestinian state. I don't know how that will work out. But what the Palestinian Authority could have done is sign the Rome Statute, go to the ICC, and until Abbas does that, I mean, David Hurst did excellent reporting from Middle East Eye about how Abbas blocked the PLO from doing that. All of the heads of the PLO had agreed to do it, and Abbas sent an emissary, and the ICC was so confused, they didn't even know who to listen to or who was in charge. One man is blocking the initiative to send Israel to the ICC, and it's Mahmoud Abbas. And if he doesn't do that, the Russell Tribunal means nothing. None of the work that any of us who are trying to expose the atrocities are doing means anything, because we have no ability to indict individual Israelis guilty of war crimes or overseeing war crimes and prosecuting them. What role does that leave for us? I don't know. All I know is that Palestinians need different leadership that isn't imposed from the outside. And the Palestinian National Committee should be elected by Palestinians from the diaspora and refugees as well as Palestinians living under occupation. That'll happen sooner or later. And finally, I think that there will be a tipping point in Israeli politics, and that Netanyahu is preventing it. Netanyahu, as right-wing as he is at the hollow center of Israeli politics. And as I mentioned, he's being pushed from the right by Avigdor Lieberman, who's losing popularity mainly because of the assimilation of the Russian-Israeli public, which has formed his base. And Naftali Bennett, the real winner of the war, this person who really embodies all of the attitudes that I've been describing, the post-Oslo generation. He's gained at least 5 seats for his party from this war. He could be the next prime minister. Netanyahu's only logical successor, Gideon Sa'ar from the Likud party, has resigned from politics forever, or at least for the time being. So I don't see anyone else with popularity and name recognition except for Naftali Bennett. When someone like that comes into power, who's rejected Oslo, who's rejected 2 states, who's rejected the peace process, where will the governments in Westminster and Washington, where will they look to for solutions? When their whole status quo has been upended, they have to start looking to us.